I call the committee of the whole order. And before we begin, I think most people are finding that there's slips back there for anyone who wishes to speak. Fill out the slip, give it to Mrs. Minnie, and we'll call you up at the time. First presentation, we have capital projects update from Mr. Statler. You're going to handle that. Okay, thank you. All right.
Okay, so on capital projects, there's really just one item tonight. And so I have a brief presentation to bring you up to speed on that one capital project. As you remember at the last meeting, we reviewed capital projects. This is one of the projects that was not approved at that time. So we're looking for your approval to move forward on the board agenda tonight. So this project is about replacing the Wi-Fi access points and the network switches in the entire district. Currently, we have 309 indoor Wi-Fi access points. They're located in all the classrooms. There's multiple access points in all the common areas like auditoriums, gymnasiums, cafeterias, libraries, large group rooms. And we're also looking, as we expand, to take access to 9 new places where there's currently little or no access. Outdoors, we have 30 access points. They cover areas, the parking lot areas, in some cases behind the schools, the football stadium, the turf field, cross-country building, and as far as those access points can reach from the outside of the buildings. And then district-wide, we have 60 network switches. The network switches are what connects all of our devices, printers, computers, Wi-Fi access points, to one network so that we can talk to each other and connect to the internet. 5 years ago, I stood up here and talked to you about, or some of you, about an E-rate project to replace Wi-Fi access points and network switches. It's an E-rate project, and it was an E-rate project at the time, which is a government program funded by, run by the Universal USAC, and it provides up to a 70% discount on eligible technology equipment that we use to connect networks. So 5 years ago, we put in new access points and network switches with the help of E-rate. That recommended replacement cycle for that hardware is approximately 5 years. So recently, requests were sent out to prospective bidders via the E-rate process to solicit bids. It's estimated that the total cost of the project will be around $530,000. We expect an approximately $299,000 subsidy from the E-rate program, bringing the total cost of the district down to $231,000. Timetable is to obtain the bids now and then recommend the winning bid to the board on February 22nd, and then, if all approved, complete this work this summer. So in summary, the ask tonight from the administration is that you approve the go-ahead of this project, and then I'll be returning in 2 weeks with the award bids. Are there any questions?
Mr. Krebs, is this projected then to last another 5 years?
Yes.
So they haven't made it better to extend any longer?
No, as a matter of fact, as more access is needed and that sort of thing, they improve the technology, and if it doesn't wear out from a hardware standpoint,
It's outdated.
there'll be some technological reason why we want to upgrade that and stay current. Any other questions?
Thank you.
For the board, this is an item, I know Mr. Krebs had mentioned it on one of the slides. This is an item that we have on the capital projects list, one that's coming due, and the ability to access Q-rate funding and cut that cost to district taxpayers, essentially in half, better than half. It makes sense to move forward here. So this would be the remaining funds would come from capital reserve funds that we have. And again, the timeline that Mr. Krebs is looking at is getting the work completed this summer.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is a curriculum management plan, and Mrs. Nicole Donato.
All right, good evening. So this evening, I'm going to talk a little bit about our curriculum management plan. It says update, but I'm not sure you know anything about it. So I'm going to start with giving you a little bit of background. So in spring of last school year, we had an audit on our curriculum done by Curriculum Management Solutions. It was conducted last spring, and we received an executive summary report on this in June, I believe. I was hired to be the director of curriculum and instruction in August. So this was the first task that Dr. Roberts handed over to me, was to look at the audit and determine the next steps that we needed to do as a district based on the information that we received back. In the audit, they gave us those strengths and recommendations, and they determined those from surveys, interviews, documents that teachers and administrators uploaded into files for them to look at, and they also did some site visits. So the interviews happened with instructional coaches, principals, department chairs, teachers, and they lasted for several weeks, and they were all done virtually. So the strengths that came out of the audit for the school district are the history of longevity, experience, and commitment of our staff, our strong emphasis on curriculum development, our commitment to the vision of our profile of a graduate, the shared value of learning, a strong sense of service to the community, and an emphasis on equity for all students. So those are the strengths that came out of the audit that we're proud of. We were happy to see that the profile of a graduate was in there as a strength, as well as that the commitment of our staff. We see that every day, and we feel that, but it's always good when we have outsiders doing interviews and conducting an audit of this kind, that they're recognizing the commitment that we have from all of our staff members. So the recommendations that came out of the audit were three pretty big ones. The first is to develop and implement a curriculum management plan, which we've never had one in the 26 years that I've been here. So this is a huge task for us to develop this plan. The second recommendation is to implement a comprehensive professional development program that's going to support the curriculum and instruction that's happening in our classrooms. And the third recommendation from the audit was to establish a framework for accountability regarding that management of curriculum. So who's in what role and what responsibilities they have. So after I went through the audit was almost 200 pages. There's a lot of information, a lot of details, and even the recommendations that they gave us were very detailed as far as what they would like to see as next steps, or recommend, I should say, as next steps. So the first thing I did after I looked at the audit was I decided that I was going to create a team to help me through this process, because it's a pretty big task to tackle on your own. So I developed or created a curriculum management plan team that includes teachers and instructional coaches, as well as administrators. And there's 23 members on this team. We've been meeting since October each month to work on this plan. And what happens is the first meeting, we met and I got some input from them on where to start. And then from that point forward, it's been a matter of me writing a plan, a draft of a plan, presenting it to the team. We meet, they discuss in small groups, they give me feedback, they give you suggestions, and then I go back to the drawing board and take their feedback and make some revisions. So a little bit of what we've been doing since October. As I said, I gathered input from them initially, and what they like about curriculum, what's not working for them with curriculum, what changes they would like to see, kind of asking them if they had that magic wand, what would that look like moving forward. So in October is getting that information. Then I went back to the drawing board and I drafted a plan. That plan was presented to them in November for the first time. They gave me feedback, and again, that cycle just continued. So they were presented another draft in December. They gave me feedback, came back in January with the entire plan, I would say, almost finished. They gave me more feedback. It's been a great process truly to go through as the teachers read through and are able to point out things that maybe aren't going to work for them, things that maybe they don't understand and need to explain more on my end. So the process has been very beneficial for me, and we're hoping to finalize the plan sometime in March. So currently, I worked Friday. We had our FID day on Friday, so I was able to spend a lot of time working on that. And we're up to, I think, 28 pages of this curriculum plan. And I'm hoping to present that to them at the end of this month, get some feedback. And then the goal, as I said, is to have it completed hopefully sometime in March. So what can you expect to see in this plan? So going back to the recommendations that were given to us, they wanted us to create a curriculum management plan. So what does that mean? And what is that going to include? So basically, the umbrella of this is it's a systematic, ongoing process for designing the curriculum, so writing the curriculum, the delivery of it, and what that looks like in the classroom for our teachers, and also the evaluation of it. So how are we checking the system? How do we know what we're writing is actually working for our students? There's going to be an instructional framework for effective classroom instruction for our teachers. So helping our teachers have a greater foundation of instructional practices that are research-based and we know works for kids. We're also going to have a component that will outline assessments, the purpose of different types of assessments, why they have them, how they're supposed to be used in the classroom, what the data analysis looks like for those assessments. A big item in the plan will include roles and responsibilities for not only administration, but also our staff. So when it comes to delivering curriculum in the classroom, what does that look like from our principal's side? What is his or her role in making sure that we're delivering the curriculum as it needs to be? From the teacher side, from department heads, instructional coaches. So there's a chart outlining all of those roles and responsibilities. And there's also guidelines and procedures that are clear for administrators and staff. So one of the things, the biggest takeaway for me with the curriculum management plan is really that we have something clear for our teachers to understand. So we've had great things going on, but there's also been a lot of questions and a lack of coherence. So we're really trying to make sure that we're as clear as can be, so that we can build more coherence across our 3 elementary schools, create vertical alignment from kindergarten the whole way through 12th grade, and really just get better at what we're already good at. Thinking about that second recommendation for professional development, we're going to focus on the professional learning that we're going to have teachers using effective practices, including differentiation. And student engagement is really important, but it doesn't need to be there twice. So that's a typo that I apologize for, but we're really looking for those high levels of student engagement. Coming out of remote learning last year and students being in school every other day, we've really learned a lot and need to continue to ask our students to have engagement, what their passions are, giving them more voice and choice in what activities they can do to demonstrate their learning to us. The other part of the professional development plan is going to be to implement systems that are going to promote those practices through instructional coaching, class visits, cycles of feedback, as well as teacher reflection. So our instructional coaches play a very big role in making sure that this follows through, as they're the ones that are in our schools every day, being able to provide some PD to our teachers, both while they're in the classroom, through modeling and giving them feedback, but also in meetings, helping them plan their lessons. And the third recommendation, that framework for accountability. When you see the curriculum management plan in its final form, there'll be a table that organizes that outlines of roles and responsibilities that I mentioned earlier for administration and staff. And again, that really goes back to clarity and making sure that there's no question who's responsible for what component that needs to be done. And just initiating efforts to develop annual district building and department plans with measurable targets that align to our strategic plan. So those measurable targets are key. We want to make sure that we have a system in place that is checking to make sure what we're doing in our classrooms every day with our students is working. So what is that evidence and what's that target that we're going to do? So to summarize overall, our goal is to have a curriculum management plan that provides clarity to all our stakeholders in the process for designing, delivering, monitoring, and evaluating curriculum that will ultimately have that impact on our students' learning and their engagement. And I end with a quote from Jim Knight, who is an instructional coach guru out of the University of Kansas. And I was talking to this is Minnick earlier, and I said that quote pretty much sums up my job. Excellent instruction every day, in every class, for every student, everywhere. And that is the goal of our curriculum management plan. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment. The entire process from the evaluation that was done last school year to help us is almost here to continuous improvement. So what this has been out of working with the team of teachers to draft a plan to be able to look at the curriculum, so what we teach, and the instruction, how we teach it, and then to have systems to monitor that progress will help us continue to be better for students every year. So I tip my hat to Mrs. Donato for the work that she's spearheading and leading and facilitating, and I'm excited for the work that's to come. So thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. Okay. Next, we have the safety update from Dr. Roberts and Mr. August.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Transition here quickly once the slide deck comes up. Thank you, Mr. Krebs. Members of the board, just wanted to provide another update as we do routine at our meetings here regarding some of the progress or the status of where we are within our buildings from a COVID-19 standpoint. So Mr. August and I will do that this evening, take you through a few slides and a little bit of an overview here. The current mask protocols within our building, a little bit of a review. We'll talk about the building masking status, current trends that we're seeing in projections around COVID-19 at the Commonwealth level, county level, and certainly within our district. We'll move on to discuss attendance rates, and it's something that we monitor very closely for any school year. But we want to take have an opportunity to share with you just where we stand from a attendance standpoint. The last thing we'll do before questions. So moving forward, the masking protocols, as you know, January 11th to current, the district has moved to a mask optional status for students, staff, and visitors in our buildings when certain criteria are met, when we stay within a threshold of 2.5% of a positivity rate within our buildings. The wearing of masks at extracurricular events after school events is optional. Masks are still required on district transportation, as that is governed by the CDC transportation order. There's an anticipated date of review in April, but no specific date set of an expiration year. Wearing a mask will not be required, as outlined there before, in an optional status, but is highly encouraged. The mask criteria that we've been under since January 11th is if those building positivity rates meet or exceed a 2.5% case threshold within a building with the universal masking for 14 days. Now, again, and I know we discussed this at length at the last board meeting as we were putting this into place, 2.5% represents the highest spikes that we've seen in our building this school year in two of our buildings, Newell Elementary School and Big Spring High School, where we've still been able to maintain in-person learning, which I say that every update that I give, that is absolutely our goal, in-person learning. So the building positivity rate, that rate is determined by calculating the total number of those active positive cases within a 14-day window within our buildings. That positivity rate includes the total building population, so students and staff. And those active positive cases are any cases where we would need to, as a school district, contact trace. So if the individual was out of school for more than 48 hours and was determined to be positive outside of school, that contact tracing back to the school would not be necessary. It would not count within those figures. If an individual, for us, the individuals that do count within the 2.5% are any confirmed cases that meet that criteria, or cases that are presumed positive and is documented by a physician. So if we have the physician's documentation of the presumed positive and confirmed cases make up that total of the 2.5%. So again, the last bullet, two sub-bullets here, speak to those protocols where if a building meets or exceeds that 2.5% threshold, they move to universal masking for 14 days. At the end of that 14 days, if those case counts and that threshold, that percentage is less than 2.5%, those buildings move back to an optional status. If it remains elevated at 2.5% or more, we wait another 7 days and do another review at that time. So to date, and Mr. August will talk about this in a little bit when we look at where our path has taken us since January 11th, 4 of our buildings have moved into a universal masking situation where it's been required. 3 have since moved out, and we anticipate the 4th moving out after tomorrow. So the system itself is recognizing when those cases become elevated. We increase our protocols, and when those cases return to a safer level, we're able to move back to an optional status. So Mr. August is going to talk about those thresholds and also where we stand.
So that 2.5% threshold is half, also represents half of what the Pennsylvania Department of Health would then recommend us to not go, or to go remote and not be face-to-face, so 5%. It comes down to what appears to be a relatively few number of cases actually in that 14-day window. Or 2 of our elementaries around 10 or 11, and obviously the bigger buildings in high school and middle school having bigger populations, having slightly bigger cases. So as Dr. Roberts alluded to, the high school in Newville, which if you follow the data that we since the beginning of the school year, have been 2 of our hotter spots. They hit the masking protocol, universal masking protocol on the 19th, approximately 9 days after the optional went into effect. Fortunately, we surged during that time, and cases began to fall to the point that we were able to bring them out and reevaluate how many cases were coming off and whether or not we were going to be able to pull masks and not have to jump right back into them based on the numbers that were falling off in the 14-day period. It's a good time to pause for me to recognize that you're going to see some graphs come up and make sure that I give a shout out to our building nurses and our our nurses aides. When you see that curve that you're going to see in a couple of slides, there's a real manpower, human resource effort that goes into place there for not only our nurses at every building to contact trace and contact parents and gather those documents, but also our counselors who set up the live stream, as well as our teachers who have to organize all that information. So before I forgot, I wanted to make sure to give them a well-deserved shout out. So Newville and the high school went in rather quickly, followed by Mount Rock the next day. Mount Rock typically trends lower, but they rode what we would assume was the Omicron spike, and they hit the threshold relatively quickly as well. Middle school held out for a few more days. They trended up slower, but eventually hit that on the 25th. And they're the building that will be coming off or being evaluated tomorrow. And I have every reason to believe, based on the trends that we're seeing, that masks will become optional at the middle school as well. Oak Flat is kind of the golden child in that they've never hit that mark. They started to rise up, had a number of exposures, but unfortunately those exposures did not convert to positive cases.
So moving forward, this next slide focuses on information about our data from Pennsylvania and was captured from the Department of Health today. This slide is Pennsylvania. The next slide is our county, Cumberland County, and the next slide after that will be the district level data. And really, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the numbers here as much as I just want to point out some positive trends. Coming into December, into January, as Omicron was surging, certainly there were increases rather than decreases in the numbers. In specific areas that we look at very closely include that incidence rate and the percent positivity. And you can see both of those metrics at the state level are decreasing, which is a good thing. As we move forward to Cumberland County, you'll see a similar trend if I look at those same two metrics, the percent positivity and the incidence rate decreasing again for both of those. What's interesting here on this slide, or not interesting, at least telling and confirming, is that as the trends go in the communities, so they do within our schools as well. The slide on the left, or at least the screenshot on the left, is a longitudinal look at positive cases with our students since the start of the school year. I know it looks like a tangled mess of spaghetti there, but each line represents one of our schools. Those 5 lines are indicating that early in the year we saw a spike, moving into the most recent spike that we saw over the last month or so. What you see on the slide to the right is CDC's depiction of what's going on in Cumberland County. So fairly similar. You can see at the beginning of the school year, there was a spike, and where we are at the mid-year point, there was a spike as well. The benefit or the positive that I want to point out is if you look at the CDC slide or the district slides, cases are moving in the right direction. So this last slide that I want to call your attention to, we look at plenty of resources to help, in some cases, explain or anticipate what we could be looking at as we move into the spring or throughout the school. This one comes out of the University of Washington and is looking at daily case counts for what they anticipate within Pennsylvania. And you can see similar trends to what we talked about before as we think about the school year. What is encouraging, granted this is just a model and it's only a snapshot of time right now, is the anticipation of that continued downward trend of the daily case counts. So that's positive. Granted, those things change very quickly. As we saw, we were in a great spot in July of this past year. As we got closer to the start of the school year, cases did come up. But nonetheless, this model right here gives us something hopefully to be a little bit excited about, one to watch very closely.
So as you're familiar, the dashboard is available on the district's website under key information, current case totals. Instead of updating it every Wednesday to Friday, due to the pressing need to know with a little more accuracy what was going on in our buildings, we did go to a daily update of this. As you can see, this is fresh off the press today. This is today's count, and it represents those graphs that you've seen. We're comfortably below the threshold numbers with active cases, and also beginning to see some of those close contacts and symptomatic students come off at pretty good rates. The total building population represents where we're getting that 2.5% number from. And as always, I'd like to just point out the staff numbers, which has really been the key component to allow us to be face-to-face, is that our staffing has been manageable. Each one of those teachers out is a challenge, given our substitute issues, but we've weathered the storm to this point, and that is something to be encouraged about as we look to hopefully normalize and easier manage numbers. So attendance rates are critical for schools, and this slide shows this particular day in Big Spring School District history, or the equivalent. We purposely kept off the 2 years from the pandemic to kind of give a before and after kind of look. As you can see, our attendance has held steady throughout all the buildings. It is comparable to pre-COVID pandemic numbers. Again, a testament to our kids wanting to come to school and our staff creating an environment that is safe and managing and working our staying open plan, including live streaming to allow those kids to still participate in their education as we navigate through this. And again, just reiterating how proud I personally am of everyone in the district efforts. Any questions?
Good news?
No.
Thank you. Okay, I would like to announce again that if anybody wishes to speak, there are cards in the back there to fill out and give to Mrs. Minnie, and you'll have plenty of time to do that before we get to the public meeting part. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole. Motion. Mr. Deal.
Second.
And Mr. Rice, second. Any negative votes? Meeting adjourned at 7:59. And if no one objects, we'll move right into the regular meeting. Okay. I'd like to call the meeting of Big Spring School Board to order. Please rise and join me.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Piper is connected to us, so we have everyone except Mr. Over here this evening. First item, approval of the January 10th, 2022 regular board meeting minutes and the January 10th, 2022 building and property committee meeting minutes and the January 10th, 22 committee of the whole meeting minutes. Deal.
Second.
And Ward will second. Roll call vote. Any negative votes? Motion carries. Student reports. We have our 3 students here. They're not here this evening. Okay. And we move to the financial reports. Payment of bills. Mrs. Herbert.
General fund, procurement card, $17,430.32. Checks, ACH and wires, $3,567,680. I'm sorry, $3,567,680.03. Capital projects reserve fund, $24,560.72. Cafeteria fund, $110,867.32. Student activities, $27,489.30 for a total of $3,748,027.69. Motion to approve the payment of bills as presented.
Mrs. Hurley.
Second.
And Mr. Deal, second.
Sure.
Any discussion? Roll call vote. Any negative votes? Motion carries. We have no correspondence this evening.
Yes, sir.
Remind visitors to please sign in back there. And before we begin the public comment period, I'm going to go over some new format. And, okay, thank you. Mr. Krebs, you'll put the policy on the board, please, and there's, okay. April of 2013, this policy for public meetings was adopted and remains in effect until the majority of the board votes to change anything in that. There are a few items that I'm going to go over that are in that policy. If Mr. Krebs, you can put the slide up of those 7 bullet points, okay? All of these things are found in the policy. This is a summary of them. And you'll see there that if there isn't sufficient time, public comment to the meeting, this comment period may be deferred to the next regular meeting or special meeting. We have to plan for doing that. Participants must be residents or taxpayers of the district and provide their name and address. We have that on these cards now. Comments shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participant may address or question board members individually. This really isn't a change. I often read a policy at the beginning to that effect numerous times back in August, but there we now have it up there. All comments are directed to the board. If we feel that the administrator needs to answer something, we will ask them to do so, but they will only respond if we ask them to. Individuals will be limited to 3 minutes. Again, that's nothing new. People have generally been close to that, but some people have abused that by several minutes after I've asked them to please stop. Next, the timer will be displayed on the screen, and when done, a bell will ring, and naturally I expect you to finish your sentence of thought, not you don't stop in the middle of a sentence, but your time is up, you'll be asked to stop. Next, no placards or banners will be permitted in the meeting room. That's always been part of the policy, but it was not something we communicated. It is there now. Tonight, none will be held up. So if those that are there, you must put them down on the floor, out of sight, and in future meetings, they will not be permitted in the room. All of these things we have run by our solicitor. The solicitor said, yes, that is done. I'll get to you then when I'm done here, okay? Okay. Gareth, last name is?
Gareth Behalco with Stock and Leader.
Yeah.
I can't hear you with your mask on.
Yeah. Turn the mic on, Microsoft also.
Thank you.
Gareth Behalco.
Can you spell that?
Behowka. Stock and Leader is the firm.
You're out of York, correct?
Correct. Stock and Leader.
Okay.
Do you have an email address?
I can give it to you.
That's great.
So none to be held up during the meeting or brought into the room in the future. So that's going to be enforced. When I'm done here, I will ask every board member if they're in agreement for enforcing these policies. The only way they can be overruled is a majority vote. So there'll have to be 4 people vote otherwise. The presiding officer may interrupt or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. request any individual to leave the meeting when that person does not observe reasonable decorum. A recess or adjournment to another time may be called when the lack of public decorum interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Those things are all part of the policy. There were some other things like limiting the public comment to 15 minutes, which we think is, we are waiving. So, Mr. Wardle, you in agreement? Mr. Fisher? Which, just a minute. Just a minute. You're out of order.
Relax.
Yeah. Mr. Fisher, is there something up there in particular you object to?
Yes, sir.
What?
The one with the banning of, things stuff that I said, freedom of speech, that part of it. That's the only part that I disagree with.
You make a motion to change that policy?
Yeah, I should take that policy.
No second, so it dies. Okay? That's the only one? That's the only one? Okay. Mr. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Radish? In agreement with enforcing those things?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Certainly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So they'll all be enforced.
Mr. Swanson? Mr. Swanson?
Yes, Mr. Piper?
I'm a yes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're a yes, okay. Thank you, that's my mistake. Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Hello, Tony Weiser, 1100 Green Spring Road. I just wanted to bring up 2.5% pressure with Dr. Roberts. Maybe I've discussed this with you in the last 6 weeks or whatever. I think common sense tells us with those flat numbers that none of our layers prove anything. So I monitor their numbers every day. I know people, family that work in the district. My kids go to flat. So I've seen them numbers hit 10, and now they're at 0. They had any more masks in there. This one's been optional. So if we're taking, we can be in agreement that the community numbers reflect our district numbers. So going forward, I would like you to use our head. We all have common sense still that masking and our other layers, Omicron, whatever it is, everybody's going to get it if they haven't. And it's showing that our numbers are lowering on the road, regardless of what layers are put in place. And I think you kind of did your own study there in the last 2 weeks to prove that. We're just, 5 schools, no flood in next, and their numbers came down to the low standards. One of the other comments I had, I mean, I'm not to direct to any one individual, but these cards for, I don't see signs being a distraction. I don't even turn around and listen to meetings. The card, I don't understand so much. I know you're probably trying to cut out some of the riffraff. I just hope that they're not, ignoring some of them. I hope everybody still gets a chance, even if they don't write down what you want to hear. I just think we're making rules as we go. I think in the last month you had better things to do with your time rather than come up with that list in a card. I hope you were more productive. Our kids' education that comes into play. I hope a little more. Otherwise, thank you for updating that COVID-19 daily. That helped me a lot. And have a good night.
Thank you. Everything's very sensible. We agree. The reason for the cards is because we had speakers not giving their name. Mrs. Minnie not get their name. and even giving addresses that were not accurate. And that's the reason. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to do that. But that was the reason. And that's a few people, but we weren't getting correct addresses. Okay? Kathy Livingood.
You need me to say my whole name and address?
No, we have it.
Sorry, okay.
Now this
Just I would ask. Thank you.
Good
I
question,
have,
but no, we have it all now, so,
okay, thank you very much.
yep, thank you.
I just have a few comments and questions about what has been said tonight. Actually, all but one thing. I know that we get communication from the district when the COVID numbers are up and the kids have to go back to masks. However, I would like to suggest that since you do that, could you please do the same thing for when the masks are back to optional? Because I hear it through my kids, but yet normally we get communication via text, via telephone, when the numbers are up and they have to be masked. So I'm asking if communication can be done, let us know that our kids can be back to optional, because that helps us as parents, just so we know that what our kids are telling us is the truth. About the technology that was mentioned earlier tonight, I was just wondering, I know that the district has received ARP money, which I know is has been used for hotspots for, I guess, the kids when they were home for home instruction. And I didn't know if that same ARP money could be put towards the new connections that you were speaking of tonight earlier in the meeting. Because I think it was mentioned, I'm sorry if I don't get this correct, and I know I have a minute left, and I'm going to try and get everything in. But instead of dipping into the capital fund, isn't there a way to use the ARP, if there's any ARP money left over, to put some of that money towards that? And one other thing, because I have 45 or so seconds left, in regards to the curriculum. Why were the parents not part of the group plan? Because the staff was part of it, the administration was part of it, instructional staff. Why wasn't parents asked about the curriculum information that everybody else was asked? I know back in August when, I guess it was like the end of August when we had the meeting, it was brought to all of our attention, to those of us that were there, that we should be working together. So I think that would be a prime time for like parents and staff and administration to work together on the curriculum. And that's all I can talk about now. Thank you.
That's part of the district improvement plan. So we do have a district improvement committee with parents are involved in that.
No, it was when they were talking about the curriculum. She was talking about how everybody was involved and people were sent surveys and this, that, and everything. I was just wondering, I didn't think it was part of the improvement plan because I didn't hear that. Maybe I missed it. But I mean,
Okay.
parents are willing to work together and.
No, that's a reasonable question. Mrs. Donato.
So I can tell you that, I don't have a microphone. So I can tell you that the thought exchange that is sent out to our families, when you put your input in that, the most recent one was your hopes and dreams for your child. That's part of what I go through to take a look at what the parents want to see in the classrooms for their kids.
Okay, so that was part of that improvement meeting that the public could join in. Okay, I was part of that for like a half an hour.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next, we have Kathy Graham.
Thank you.
Pardon? So you're not speaking, okay. Jessica Krieger, is it? The Krieger.
So there, according to a book that I had read a few years ago, called BSSD, the public school movement didn't start until around 1867, which is right after the Civil War, so it's really not that old. I don't know if anybody knows why they started public. One of the main reasons they started public school was because there was a tremendous influx of immigrants during that last half of the 19th century. Language was a major issue. So the public school was how the government addressed incorporating them to be contributing members of America. Nowhere in there did it mention health or medical reasons. Every state constitution does say that the purpose of public education is to prepare active and informed citizens. Again, not to mandate health decisions. I just recently read an article a Chinese doctoral student mom had written. In her article, she states that in China, her son had to study hard, but here in the US, he just needs to bring a snack to school. Never mind a healthy snack. I mean, if they're wearing masks, they won't be allowed to eat it anyway, I guess. So now I'll take them off. But there's a host of other issues going on right now as well. But 2 Thessalonians 2:10 says they did not receive the love of the truth. And then in verse 11, it says that God will send them strong delusion, so they will believe the lie. And then in verse 12, they'll believe the lie that all might be condemned that believe not the truth. I found it interesting then in Revelation 21:8 that there's a list of those who won't be saved. And the first one at the top of that list was the cowardly and the fearful. We as Americans, we must be willing to take a righteous stand for the freedoms, the rights, the responsibilities endowed to us by God, revealed to us by the scriptures, and protected for us by the Constitution. I urge you, each one of you, to take a stand, to stand up for what's right. If I could close in a prayer real quick. I thank you, Lord. Dear Lord, we thank you for this country, our government, and our freedoms that you've blessed us with. I ask that you promote and raise up men and women of truth, full of wisdom and respectful to us. That you give each of these individuals in their leadership positions understanding, wisdom, and the ability to keep the rules of order. Protect them from evil that is in this world and keep evil and wicked men from influencing them. I ask that you strengthen them to be bold and courageous. Cause them to make decisions that increase integrity. Grant them insight needed to deal with the issues that have been voiced tonight and for the matters at hand to make righteous judgments. Father, please use us and our leaders to accomplish the things that you want us to accomplish. We thank you that you are Lord over us and our nation. In your name I pray. Amen.
And thank you. Okay, Chuck Burns.
Can our public schools really prepare our children for success if they cannot differentiate fact from opinion? One of the most important traits to acquire as an adult is the ability to admit mistakes. It is well past time for our superintendents, school board directors, and teachers to admit to mistakes regarding mitigation strategies in schools and show our students that they are capable of doing the right thing. Absent that acknowledgement, many parents will be left wondering if their children's education can be trusted with the public school system. Why are teachers not critically examining the evidence and discussing this in the classroom? Instead, they are enforcing draconian measures upon our children and are subject to misguided decisions of the superintendents and local unions. The cries among young people can no longer be considered unintended consequences. The consequences are obvious, and every school, vendor, board, school board member, and every school administrator knows that. With this knowledge, these decisions are at a minimum neglect and at the worst criminal. How much, and this is going on a little bit more, how much are your children and your grandchildren worth? What price would you put on your children and grandchildren? Mine are priceless. And I'm sure parents here. But I feel that you have made the decision that the children aren't. You sold our children. You sold our children for $1,566 each. That's what you think our children are. Shame on you. You know how I came up with that, or do you know how I came up with that? Yes, you want to know how I came up with that? They think you're worth that? Okay, why do you think you were worth that? It's because they received $4 million for masking. And what you're doing? And they have 2,500. When you do the math, it's $1,566. That's what you think of you. You sold them, and shame on you. Are you going to apologize? Is there going to come a time when you feel sorry that how could you have done that? Which one of your children are worth now? Aren't they priceless? Don't they need feel loved and welcome? And you think nothing of them. So I would like to see you all apologize to the children and beg for forgiveness. The parents and the children. They have hurt and possibly ruined. And you've ruined them. Or possibly. They deserve much better.
Laura Mackey.
Back this up, talk a little loud. I was wondering if any of you are familiar with the strategic plan, the manual, the board policies. Has anyone read it recently? I have, and I left some at home. You're breaking the laws, even your own board policy procedures. As of tonight, you clearly see that you make the rules as you go. The health and the safe school environment, the goal is to ensure a safe, positive learning environment that respects the individual rights of all students. Policy manual, board procedures, code 0, rules of construction. Neither the board nor the administration intends to violate the federal or state constitution or any other applicable law. You've already broken it. All of you are guilty. Powers of Board Code 2. Board shall be the agent responsible for establishing and maintaining the public education activities of the school district in accordance with law. School board policies, code 9, policies pertaining students shall give consideration to provisions of the statute objective of the school district and the expectations of the school community. Community. We stand before you begging you every Monday. Please stop with the masks. Stop with the health and safety plan for $1,000 a kid. No policies adopted shall be in conflict with Department of Education or laws of the Commonwealth. Board Policy Code 11. Standards for effective school governance. Section 3 governs school policy by seeking input from stakeholders. We are your stakeholders. We pay our taxes. Purposefully linking its actions to applicable board policies. Why is this not being done? Why? I ask, we beg and plead. Code of conduct for the school board members. We as members, this is the code of conduct you all have taken. We as members of our local board of education, representing all residents of our school district, believe that in order to maintain a free, a strong country, our civic obligations to the community, commonwealth, and nation is to maintain free and strong public schools in the United States of America. Number 2, accordingly, the community should be provided with information about its schools and be engaged by the board and staff. I have spoken to 2 of you. I've been coming here for 3 months. None of you bothered to speak with any of us. None of you bothered to mingle with us. It's hurtful. It's belittling. Thank you. Have a good night.
Charlotte McDonald.
Good evening. This may be a little redundant. There are 4 things which govern the decisions made by this board. They are your oath of office, board policies and regulations, United States and state constitutions, and the law. Let's review your oath of office. I do solemnly swear that I will support and obey and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Now let's look at the School Board Policy Manual. Limitations of Policy Administration Regulations, paragraphs 1 and 3. Board policies and administrative regulations are not intended and shall not be construed to supersede or preempt any applicable law. Board policies and administrative regulations shall not preempt, create, supplant, expand, or restrict the rights or liabilities of students, employees, or other residents within the school community beyond those established in law. Board policies and procedures are not intended to restrict or limit individuals in the school community from pursuing any claims or defenses available under applicable law. Under authority and powers heading, paragraph 4, the board shall be responsible for enforcing mandatory laws and regulations. The board shall be the agent responsible for establishing, maintaining, and evaluating the public education activities of this school district in accordance with law. In accordance with our state constitution on December 10th of 2021, the Supreme Court of this Commonwealth has ruled mask mandates unconstitutional, minus a state of emergency, as can only be declared by our legislature. Even were there a declaration of a state of emergency in Pennsylvania, there is no specific language in the PA Disease Prevention and Control Law providing for universal masking of students and staff. This effort would require regulation, which has not yet occurred. Further, under the law regarding communicable diseases in children and staff attending schools and child care group settings, section 2771, the law allows for the exclusion or removal of children or staff having any of the listed 14 diseases, of which COVID-19 is not listed. Section 2772 only allows for exclusions due to certain specific symptoms that must be determined by medical staff, not by parents. However, it does not allow for lengthy blanket quarantine measures of the sick or of students who are suspected of having been exposed. In conclusion, as a stakeholder in this school district for 35 years, I find the mask mandates and quarantine measures imposed by this board to be in violation of the board members' oath of office, board policies and regulations, the Pennsylvania state constitution, and the law. Thank you very much.
Okay. Lawrence Flynn.
Just want to throw out there, I do like the yellow card thing, so it's not announced over the internet where I live. I appreciate that. So, first and foremost. Second thing I want to address, you just heard code laws brought forward to you, so I want to address the presiding officer. Can you defend the fact that you're not in violation of the law with your procedures that you just outlined today? And under what authority are you saying that we can't have signs?
Solicitor, first of all, our board policy, and then our solicitor ruled that we can enforce that as long as we enforce it evenly. And it's not stifling freedom of speech. People can still talk.
Signs are freedom of speech. But you just heard the laws. You know, are you allowed to stifle freedom of speech? Are you saying that you're allowed to stifle freedom of speech? Or you're not allowed? Do I get extra seconds?
No.
So
it's been, again, it's stated, you address the board.
I'm addressing the presiding officer.
But I do not need to respond. I'm not going to respond to legal things. I'm not an attorney. Nor are you, nor are those people that read those things.
You do understand that it's a yes. I cannot stifle freedom of speech. It's simple. It was read. The code was read.
There is a freedom of speech.
Yes.
There is no doubt about it.
And you're not allowed to stifle it, correct? That's a simple question.
I'm quite sure that you can't stand in a movie theater and holler or fire.
Have we had that?
No, but I'm just saying that freedom of speech doesn't cover absolutely everything.
More importantly,
okay,
the presiding officer, are you guys that afraid of a sign? Does it bother you that much? Because you're clearly making out that you are not interested. Over and over again, you communicated that you are not interested in what we have to say. You are not interested in the taxpayers, the stakeholders. You're not interested. That's why we have a new member. That's why, well, no, you were safe. That's why two other members were really close or could have been close. You're not interested in what we're saying. And you're communicating in this new policy, which I believe is clear that it is illegal. So you need to own up to your authority. And what authority do you have? Because you don't have authority over that. I didn't get to talk about the mask that was on there, but I think you know where I stand. So do the right thing. Stop breaking the law.
Two cards here. Keep it down. Recess. We have a 15-minute recess.